What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video by yours truly. We have Duet Night Abyss. We're going to be talking about the latest patch update as well as the latest character, Kezhou, the Master of Arm. I've been asking for a character to come into this game that actually involves using the melee and ranged weapons, and this guy's entire kit is utilizing melee and ranged weapons, so I'm quite excited to talk about him. But before we get into all that, I want to give a huge shout out to the DNA team for sponsoring this video. If you end up liking what you see, don't forget to click the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment to download DNA. We also got some nice QOL to go over that have been brought in with this latest patch update, starting off with Rhythm. They have added Rhythm to the secret letter shop. So you can now go into the secret letter shop, buy as many secret letters as you want to do per out without getting in the way of purchasing those Fina dupes from the boss fight. Trust me, I get it. I know how that works. Apart from that, we have another good positive change, and that is the immersive theater has been more optimized for a better player-friendly experience. Some of the secret letters, a lot of them actually, have been front-loaded on the earlier stages of the immersive theater, which means you'll be able to get all those copies without having to go so deep down the immersive theater where those bosses and those fights start getting a lot more beefier, tankier, and difficult. And then the final thing I want to mention is if you are a current i6 Lady Knifel owner, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this immersive theater. Since our boy Kezhou is Lumino and he works very well with Lady Knifel, you can now use her inside of this theater, whether you're doing her as a main DPS or you're putting her in the tactical backpack next to your Kezhou. She works phenomenally well. So if you own her or you haven't built her yet, what the heck are you doing, man? Go ahead and build your Lady Knifel as fast as you can. She's in the secret letter shop. She's one of the most insane units in the entirety of the game at i6. So we'll be talking about that in this video as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into some Kezhou content. All right, before we get into the good stuff, I want to get you guys acclimated with this drip. As you can see, I am rocking a number of things, and what I like about Duet Night Abyss is you can just come over here to cosmetics and see what I have on. Now, of course, some of this stuff you do have to spend some money in the shop just to drip your character out. That is indeed optional, but this is what I went for with the headpiece. This is what I'm doing for the eyes. I do love the blindfolded swordsman trope, and so we got that on the eyes. And then behind us, we've got this gold clean looking blade with some chains on it, and then we've got some katana blade just on the side because he is like a master of all arms. He is a master of all weapons, and so yeah, this is the look I went for. I did change the color to give a little bit of gold to match the whole color palette there. And our melee weapon of choice, of course, as a weeb, we're using the katana blade, and we also put some a lightning aura on that bad boy. Finally, our weapon, which we will be showcasing as one of the more accessible options. If you don't feel like grinding for his main weapon, this is one of the weapons that really goes hard. It's very good. But yeah, I added a color to it which matches, you know, the color of his outfit. That's the drip showcase. All right, now let's go ahead and talk to you guys about Kezhou. I don't know if I said that right. I hope I did. What does his kit look like? How does it work? How do you play this guy? Let's start off with the very first skill right here. We've got Drift of Youth. Only thing you need to know about this skill, you don't even have to read much, just listen to me. It increases his attack speed, okay? And it has a duration attached to it. That means any duration buffs you put on your team or him himself, it's going to boost how long this is going to last. Now, his passive ability, this second panel, is going to be in conjunction with the exact same duration time. So this is 20.64 seconds, and this is 20.64 seconds. That is pretty much the extent of duration viability with Kezhou. You just want to make sure that it's lasting long enough. And so if I come over here and I cast his skill, it's a quick burst step, like a Shumpo step, very flashy. You'll notice right next to his health bar, we've got a duration right here. And then we've even got a little buff icon, a baby buff icon down there. Well, if I cast the burst step, it refreshes that buff time. Once again, that is just to make your weapon attack a lot faster. And that is pretty much the extent of his skill. Very nice and simple, increases your attack speed. Now his ultimate, that is where all the bread and butter happens. In his ultimate, the best way I can summarize it up is he enters this state where he summons all these beautiful, shiny, bright weapons, and then he gets a plethora of efficacy increases in terms of his melee weapon casting abilities. Now this guy, as I said, is a master of all arms, and so when you cast his ult, first, you're going to see all of the arms hit the field. I really love how this looks. It looks super cool. This guy has a sequence of different weapons that he's going to go through. Now, it's normal attack sequence. So if you just left click, he's going to have a weapon that he's going to start off with, right? And so then he switches over to a spear, right? After he switches over to the spear, he'll go over to another weapon. So let's go ahead and do that plunge. Now we've got the dual blades out, as you can see. and he'll go over to the dual blade. But every time he jumps up into the air and does that plunge down, he switches weapons. All right, so he'll switch weapons between the spear, the dual blades, the regular sword, and then of course the great sword as well. Now the way that this ultimate works is it gives you a massive increase to your melee weapon damage, your attack speed boost, and it also has this additional perk called Fano Plumes. And if we come over here to his buffing capabilities, you'll see that Fano Plumes is essentially these hovering blades that will target and zone in on many different enemies and do more ticks. It's just an ult that allows you to enjoy the very aspects of melee weapon combat. Now what's cool about this ult is it actually benefits going outside of the ult as well. Go outside of the ult, he ends it, and then you can start shooting with his melee weapon. In fact, this is the dynamic of playing with Kezhou. You pop off with melee weapons inside of his ult, you exit his ult, and then you shoot the melee weapon. Doing this is going to boil down to the symbiotic relationship between Kezhou's kit, between a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. Now I'd like to summon an enemy so that you guys can get a better idea of how that works. If you notice, while I'm outside of his ult, if I shoot the melee weapon, I just filled up this meter down here to 100. Once it's at 100, I can now cast my ult and start gaining the benefits of the ultimate efficacy, which again, damage increase as well as an attack speed increase as well. So if I attack him right now, you see that that's 5,000 damage. That's 4,000 damage. 5,000, 7,000. All right, so if we pop his ult, it increases like tenfold. All right, so we'll go ahead and pop ult. Now when I attack, that's 30K. It's 31K, right? So we went from 5 to 4K to 7K to 30K. Now, another cool thing that's really good about Kezhou inside of his ult is he has hit immunity inside of his ultimate for pretty much the majority of all of his attacks. Now, that guy there has got a really strong attack, so I ended up still getting hit. But for the vast majority of attacks, you could just stand there and he won't flinch at all. It's only the massive like attacks that have insane impact frames. Well, he'll still get hit. But for the most part, bro just tanks all of the hits and doesn't get flinched at all, which is really cool. Now, the last thing I want to mention is every time you attack with this guy, you'll see that meter down there. It was at 100. Right now it's at 83. Every time he attacks, that meter does go down, but you'll notice the range weapon meter goes up. This is a good barrier for you to know when to exit his ult and start using the range weapon, because once that meter runs out, you no longer get the damage increase anymore, right? So it's important to expenditure that meter entirely, and then once you go over to 100 points on the range weapon side, you then exit his ult and you start shooting with the ranged weapon, which once again, the ranged weapon then will start getting a massive damage increase as well. All right, so we're gonna spawn in. We got a little bit of meter built up on the ranged weapon side. Like I said, I like to fully expend my melee weapon meter before I go in and switch over to the other weapon. But I just want to show you guys how this works. So now we exit the ultimate and then we start shooting this bad boy. And then it fills my meter up right down there back to 100. And now we can go right back into our ultimate. Now, Duet Night Abyss is very much so a team-oriented game in the sense of all your damage increases drastically when you have the right team surrounding this guy. By himself, damage doesn't look that impressive. With a team, damage increases exponentially. So with everything understood, the passive ability down here, which is the last thing I didn't go over, pretty much is what I already explained to you. This passive ability allows his weapon to scale off in an increase in damage percent. It also lowers the sanity cost of casting his ult and exiting his ult. That's what this 0.3 multiplier stands for, and that's pretty much what the passive does. Now once you come over here to unlocking this passive, it just actually allows your swapping between melee and ranged weapons. You see that meter going from left to right. It just allows that to be a bit more accessible. I leave this open because I don't think I'm ever gonna use Kezhou outside of a main DPS role. This is for when he's in the tactical backpack. He's gonna give an attack boost to everybody that is of the Lumino element, but seeing as I'm always gonna have as a main DPS, I don't see a reason to waste resources right here. We will be getting into a showcase too with how Kezhou performs. Just keep in mind the showcase is with him at all level 6 abilities. So I am not actually using a fully optimized Kezhou. He's also at I0, so none of this is unlocked. Keep in mind in Duet Night Abyss, all of this can be unlocked for completely free. The exception of the initial window of the new characters coming out, you can only usually unlock up to an I1 because they give you 65 in the immersive theater mode. But once that that whole entire duration expires, they usually put them inside of the boss mode, or you can buy them outright at the shop. Sometimes it just depends on what they do with them, and then you can proceed to I6 them entirely. But this guy at I0 with an optimal team is an absolute monster. Now, there's one more important thing to take into consideration with Kezhou's ultimate, and that is the Phano plume and how it functions. Basically, you get 7 Phano plumes that can orbit around him, and then they start going in on the enemies like homing missiles, and they deal a lot of damage. Now, they will deal additional damage, and this additional damage is affected by how much weapon trigger probability that Kezhou has. As you can see right here, which is equivalent to a certain percentage of dot of the bonus effect. Lumino multiplied by Kezhou's melee weapon trigger probability. So one thing about Lumino characters that's really cool, and it's exclusive pretty much to them, is Lumino characters can inflict a dot that does periodic damage for 6 seconds up to 6 stacks, but they refresh all bonus effects when this occurs. And so this is an exclusive, very beneficial perk for Lumino characters. Thus, you want to have very high weapon trigger probability so that you're triggering bonus effects and refreshing bonus effects, and then keeping that dot up on them as well. This is why whatever weapon you ended up using on them, you want to try and get that trigger probability up quite high. And so mine's is sitting at 53.7, but then there's characters like the main protagonist who can bring your trigger probability up a whole nother 100%, which is very good. So right now we'll fill up our weapon beater. All right, and then we'll pop our ultimate. We'll do a Shumpo step for attack speed. Now, watch this. As I auto attack them, you're going to see these little hover, like little swords pop them. See that? Those are the Phano plumes. And so every time you auto attack, you'll see these swords on the side of my character. You see them? They're like stacking up. Those are the Phano plumes. They can deal a lot more damage when you have a whole entire team. Of course, when you have your 2 other characters buffing the Lumino attack, buffing his trigger probability, it can get a lot higher basically. Now that we understand Kezhou's kit on a fundamental level, we can start talking about demon wedge building and so on and so forth. So the game tells you skill duration and skill efficiency, at least it's highlighting that, but I'll be honest, it doesn't really matter. As I said earlier, skill duration is simply increasing the duration in which your attack speed is lasting, but it's just a quick refresh by tapping his skill, right? Shumpo step, and it refreshes the attack speed. You're back to doing this over and over. Other than that, duration doesn't really have any real value. What you want to worry about with Kezhou is going to be boosting his Lumino attack or attack as high as it possibly can go, increasing his morale as much as it can possibly go. Morale is very strong. It's a multiplicative buff dependent upon having max HP. And then other than that, skill intensity, which is pretty much going to be how much skill damage you're doing. And that's pretty much it. Like everything else, it's like a who cares ordeal. Nothing else matters except Lumino attack, morale, and then skill intensity. Duration, because you do want some duration to make sure you don't have to keep refreshing the attack speed buff over and over. So mine's lasts for about 20 seconds, but right here, we're going for skill duration plus 24%. We get a free attack percent boost just by increasing our skill duration. This is like the Lumino kit. A lot of it is revolving around skill duration for the other characters. And so putting some skill duration in there doesn't harm you. It's kind of just like access benefit on top. But what you really want to go for is like maybe one of these, attack plus skill duration. And then you want to stack up as much Scorch as possible. One thing about the Lumino characters and their demon wedges is Scorch is pretty much the one they have. It's just raw attack plus 96%. You'll see I didn't even level up this last one because I'm running short on space and I'm only level 70. And then we've got Eternity again. So we're running 2 Eternities and we're running 3 Scorches. But to be honest, you could just run 4 Scorches, get even more attack boosts, and you'll just lose a couple of seconds of uptime on skill speed boost ability. Now down here, we've got Prime Morale. That's going to give us 18% morale plus attack and then HP and defense. This is a really, really solid demon wedge. And then over here, we've got Midnight Sun, which is giving us skill intensity, duration, and Lumino attack. Middle here, we're just using whatever tolerance we can. For our weapon of choice, we just went for the katana, which is giving us a raw crit damage boost. The katana is very good just for honestly stat stick purposes. It really doesn't matter what weapon he's using because he's just going to go inside of his ultimate and use his own weapons. The weapon is just what it can offer him inside of his ultimate, which is going to be this crit damage boost right here. So the katana is not the only thing that does that. Another thing I look for is the base stats of the weapon I'm using. How good are those base stats? The katana has some pretty good base stats. We got up to 680% 50% crit damage. We got some pretty decent crit trigger probability. But in terms of how to build the weapon, what we're looking for, once again, trigger probability, because it scales with DPS and triggering bonus effects. Of course, you got your crit damage scaling, which you can never go wrong with. Crit's king. Attack percent boost, attack percent crit chance, and then we've got more trigger probability with crit damage, and these are greens. And then we've got slash attack with more trigger probability. Pretty much stack as much trigger probability as you can. After that, crit damage, crit chance, attack percent boost, and then let him do his thing inside of his ultimate. That's the idea I went for. In terms of his ranged weapon, he does have a signature weapon that's going to be coming out with his banner. We'll go over that in a bit. But this weapon here, if you do not feel like grinding for the signature weapon because you're lazy or whatever the case, this weapon has already been out since the release of the game. And if you already have it, it is fantastic with Kezhou because he boosts range weapon damage when he exits his ult. You shoot it, it's efficient, and as soon as you're done with this weapon, you go right back into his ult. It actually synchronizes with his kit perfectly well, and let me explain why. After switching to this weapon, increase your multi-chat by 38%. Since Kezhou has a kit where you're constantly switching between melee, this weapon works perfect for him, and because it ticks so much, it fills that meter up down here so freaking fast that you just switch over to it momentarily, a bunch of range weapon damage, and then you go right back into his ultimate. And so this is a fantastic option for people who don't have his signature weapon just yet. Strongly recommend building for it. If you want to know the build, it's very easy. Multi-shot right here, attack percent, multi-shot again, and then this is a blue, but it's very good. When you trigger a bonus effect, Lumino characters excel at that, you get even more multi-shot, right? So it's like multi-shot. And then over here, we got crit damage, trigger probability, crit chance, crit damage, trigger probability. Call it a day. That's pretty much the entire Kezhou build. Lastly, I want to talk to you guys about is his introns, and then we'll get into the showcase. So I'm going to be showcasing him purely at I0, just because when a limited character first comes out, you don't really have access to their introns without spending money. You can get I1 once you clear all of immersive theater. And if you're really lucky, you might even get an I2 because you get 65 of the letters in total. So, and there's been times where I've gotten an I2 literally with just 65 letters. Like on average, 20 letters gave me a whole copy of a character, and I got 3 copies relatively easy, a little over an hour of grind, probably somewhere around there, maybe an hour and a half, who knows. But basically his I0 just makes it so that you do even more damage when you enter his ultimate. That's what this 0.7 scaling is. And then it also ensures that you have a bit more accessibility between those bars going up and down to switch between the melee and weapons, right? So pretty solid boost there. His I2 just gives him a flat out damage increase when you're triggering bonus effects. He's going to be triggering bonus effects all day long because of his trigger probability being very high. And then it restores sanity. To be honest, he doesn't really need that much sanity in my experience, especially if you're running him with Fushu. Fushu's just going to take care of all of his sanity issues. But if you're running him with like Fina and the main pro tag, or like I6 Lady Knifel, he might have a bit more sanity issue. In my experience, it wasn't really that bad though, but this will just pretty much nip that in the bud. Obviously, this is just dupes increasing his pre-existing abilities and increasing the potency of them. Number 4 is granting him immunity to hit stun even outside of his ultimate, which is crazy. So inside of his ultimate, he has hit stun immunity, and then this will be hit stun immunity outside of his ultimate and reduces damage taken by 25%. Same concept as the dupe 2. The final one is just straight up taking all of his damage and increasing it because it's just shred. So it penetrates by up to 54%. That's penetration, right? And then once again, trigger a bonus effect. 54% penetration. Basically his melee weapons, his Phano plume, everything he does, range weapon shooting, will be penetrating 54% of their armor. So this is obviously just going to take what he already does and make it so much stronger. Now, one of the first showcases we're going to be doing is we're going to be going up against the immersive theater. I remember last rotation, people had problems with the featured repertoire act 3. That's when things got a little beefy. So I'm going to show off that one just so you guys could see what he's capable of. I'll be using a very low efficiency team. I say that because this game is technically free to play in all aspects. It's just a matter of you getting on the game and grinding it at your own leisure, right? So I2 Fina is what I own on my account. And I got that I2 Fina quite literally by playing the game every week, going to my weekly bosses, coming over here to this boss and just spamming her. Just spam, spam, spam. I think I literally got I2 Fina. And so in 2 weeks, you can get that I2 Fina, no freaking problem. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's that easy. And then I'm using the free-to-play main protagonist. Very fantastic synergistic option that you can completely I6 again just by playing through the story. That's going to be the team I'm using for that third floor. On the other side, we're using Fushu with the Jellyfish Girl and then the Water Girl, right? The water team. Now, it's important to take into consideration, guys, the shield buffs for immersive theater are very important to take advantage of. We're talking about a 400% damage increase. And then there's even more buffs on that when you get later. So it's important to use the appropriate elements. Now, Immortal Repertoire, I'm getting through this one as well. It's been completely fine. Act 2, we're going to be getting even more buffs that are going to be shilling this Lumino character team. We can either go Fina with Fushu, or we can go Fushu with I6 Lady Nightfall. If you don't have I6 Lady Nightfall, use your Fina. If you don't have Fushu, use the main protagonist instead. Alrighty, time to put your money where your mouth is, bucko. First thing we do is we want to fill up our sword meter down there. So we're gonna shoot, boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's already at 100. We pop our ult, we hit skill, and now we're attacking fast. And brother man just starts going to town. Yes, sir. Bing, 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 bing. Oh, it already ran out. So we go over here to our weapon. It's back to 100 at the bottom. We refresh our skill, go back into the ult. It's really just that simple, boys. And as you can see, the guy's AoE is deceptively good. Like, it doesn't, you think, oh, it's a melee weapon, it's not that good. No, it's actually pretty damn good, guys. And so that weapon, as I told you, works very well with him because it just ticks so much. And so it fills up this weapon bar down here to 100 very fast. So we're just able to pop our ult and just completely decimate people, right? And because we've got our 2 supports over there buffing our stuff even further, honestly doing it at a no-brainer. I can talk to you guys all day. I can talk about the weather while I'm doing this. It's that comfortable. Yep, here's the boss, boys. Here it is. You can see the damage right here. Okay, I wasn't expecting her to just jump up into the air like that. What the heck, man? Yeah, here you go. Great damage, man. Just absolutely shredding. And the good thing about boss fights is that you don't consume a lot of his meter down there because it's just one target. When you hit a lot of targets with Kezhou, the meter gets consumed a lot quicker. We popped our ult to iframe that. Very nice. I love doing that, actually. It feels so good. Okay, we'll go ahead and start shooting this again. All right, we're back at 100 melee weapon. And see, like, bro has hit stun immunity, so she just can't even knock me on my butt. So, like, whatever she does, like all those attacks, he just eats them. We'll pop ult just to get our meter back up. And I just love using this weapon. Okay, and now we're back to shredding the heck out of this boss. Holy 400 Ks. God dang it, Bobby. And there it is. As you can see, Act 3 was completely decimated. All right, now I want to talk to you guys about his absolute best teams to utilize to bring the most potency out of them. Starting off with Lady Nightfall. Obviously, I only recommend this character if you I6 her entirely. Once you get her to I6, she just becomes an absolute nuke artist. She starts shooting her bow, and the bow starts dropping her ultimate. And if you guys don't already know, this is only at level 6. Her ultimate has a 6,834% multiplier. It gets even more insane the more you level it all the way up. And then another thing about Lady Nightfall is that she's also Lumino, which is very important in this game when they share the same element, because when you come over here to their supportive capabilities, they give a 50% attack boost when they share that element. Some characters do, and she's one of them. So we'll go ahead and unlock that. I don't know why I didn't have that unlocked. You just slap this freaking bow on top of your Lady Nightfall and then just watch her do magic. Now, the final option can be a mixed bag here. Perfect person, obviously, is going to be Fushu if you own her, because Fushu is going to increase your sanity recovery for both of them, skill damage for both of them, attack speed boost and skill speed boosts, and then she's also going to sustain your team by healing them and providing shields. She does a lot. If you grinded out the entirety of the immersive theater, you've probably also unlocked her I1 to where you get to ignore 30% of all the enemy's defense, which makes the damage go up even further. If you don't have Fushu, it's not the end of the world. It's completely fine. You could use Fina. It's only risky here because neither one of them are going to sustain your Kezhou, right? But if you have a Fina, she does pop off, but I would actually recommend always having a sustainer on the team to sub-capacity. So you could use, guess what? The main pro tag, completely free to play, but additionally grants plus 54% crit chance, at I6. That's really important for Kezhou to land all of his crits. Not only does this dude do that, he gives a melee weapon, or I'm sorry, just a weapon damage boost, period. So that's good for all weapons. He also gives a trigger probability boost to the entirety of the party. Very important for Kezhou and Lumino characters as a whole. And then his buffs melee weapon damage, or I'm sorry, I keep saying melee, weapon damage boost to everybody in the party as well, a massive amount, and I'm only at level 6. And he gives a fat shield, ultra shield, to the entire party. So this is a great option if you don't have Fushu yet. You can use this guy. He gets the job done with Lady Knifel, and you just put a supportive build on them and call it a day. If you're wondering what I'm running, I have this. You just put as much skill duration on him as possible so its ult lasts very long, and so there's the buffs, shields and stuff. And then you just stack skill duration. You can put this on him, one or the other, increase your damage dealt by you and your teammates by 11%, or you go for the restore sanity part. Whichever one you put on one of the tactical backpack partners, put the other one on the other one. Does that make sense? Increase damage dealt by you and your teammate by 11% on him. So that means I would then proceed to go over to Lady Knifel, and I would put on her the other one, which should be, oh, I got to unlock it, but it is restores your additional sanity by, I think it's 7 once you level it all the way up, in your teammates every 3 seconds. In fact, let's just find a quick little support to make sure we can fact check that. It's going to be, 7 for you and your teammates. This is huge for when you run into sanity regeneration problems. So you don't have to, but it does help. Anyways, main pro tag, Knifel, Fina, and then the last person I would recommend is going to be Fushu. All 4 of these characters are going to be the best bet for Kezhou. Other than that, don't get me wrong, you could probably use some other characters, but in my findings, obviously you have to pair them up with one of these characters, and then the other one is going to be a sustainer. In some cases, that sustainer is going to be Fushu for others, or the main protagonist for others. The other 2 characters, Fina or Lady Knifel. And that's going to wrap it up for today's content. I do hope I brought you guys some valuable insight with regards to how to play Kezhou and all of the intricacies of his kit. If you ended up enjoying what you saw and you haven't tried DNA yet, you can click the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment in the comment section to download Duet Night Abyss. Once again, thank you DNA team for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.